Anyone talking about drug cartels and the real dawn of the late 90s can never miss mentioning the drug lord of his era, Pablo Escobar. And while mentioning the wealth, we can say that it's one thing to be rich. It's a whole nother thing to be Pablo Rich, the sole leader of the Medellin cartel. Hello and welcome to the channel. Today, you will be taking a deeper dive into how much Pablo Escobar was really worth. With the whole Netflix series Narcos made after his life and how he made it into the billionaires list gained him an audience who never really knew about him. But the real question is, how much would he have harnessed with his business if he was alive? Before we dive in, make sure you have subscribed and hit the like button. Pablo Escobar was a family man before turning into one of the wealthiest and most feared criminals to have ever lived. The Colombian cocaine drug kingpin was the perfect description of the filthy rich. He became more than just the head of the Medellin cartel in less than 2 decades. He had several nicknames as the drug dealer, mostly called Don Pablo, y the Godfather, and El Zar de la Cocaína, the star of cocaine. Escobar's cocaine kingdom bagged him an estimated net worth of $30 billion in the early 1990s. He was ranked as one of the richest men in the world by Forbes. Pablo Escobar, indeed, was the king of cocaine. And here are some lesser-known, most outrageous facts about his unimaginable wealth. Pablo Escobar was worth an estimated $59 billion in today's money at the absolute pinnacle of his drug empire in October of 2020. The Medellin cartel boss made so much money that he caught the attention of Forbes magazine. For 7 years running in 1991, he was named as the second richest person on the planet. With all that said, we still need to figure out how much money he really had. So here's something that can clear your thoughts. A billion is 1,000 millions. Imagine winning $1 million lottery 50,000 times in a row, provided you didn't spend any of that money. You would then be as rich as Pablo Escobar. On the other hand, if you made $10 million a year in some high-earning job, it would take you 500 years to earn $1 billion to equal Escobar's fortune. Even a $500 million a year salary, which you might know is an amount that absolutely nobody gets paid to do any job, would still require you to hold down that job for 127 years before you can go toe-to-toe with Pablo Escobar. Still not getting a sound idea of his wealth? Well, how about you think of it another way? The British royal family, who is among the wealthiest families on the planet, boasts a net worth of $88 billion, and one man was just almost equal to the entire British royal family, being only $35 billion short on his net worth. But still, all that for one single person? Whew. But the real question is, also, what if he wasn't killed? So if he were alive and still at work today, Pablo Escobar's net worth would be more than $100 billion, making him the wealthiest person on earth. Due to the nature of drug money, with it being illegal, not reported, and not taxed, Pablo Escobar's net worth has been mostly determined through estimation. However, the numbers are based on facts obtained through interviews with ex-cartel members, known associates, and undercover operatives. In the mid-1980s, at the height of his power, Escobar's cartel brought in roughly $70 million a day, coming out to $22 billion a year. But exactly how deep were those pockets? Well, we can have a look about how he spent money to get an idea of what he was worth. He spent $2,500 a month on rubber bands to hold the money. While Pablo was known for hiding or destroying the excessive amount of money, Escobar faced another, more elementary problem: neatly organizing the banknotes. In the 1980s, Escobar's cartel was having an estimated 420 million pouring in each week, totaling around 22 billion annually. That's a lot of money to keep account for, which was left to his brother, Roberto Escobar. According to Roberto Escobar, the Medellin cartel spent an estimated $2,500 a month on rubber bands needed to hold the stacks of bills together. To keep all this money organized in proper stacks and to hand them out on the go, he used to hold the stacks with rubber bands. This way, it was a lot easier to pour the cash stacks out when he was on the run or to give it off to the dealers. This is, of course, subtracting the $2,500 a month the cartel spent on rubber bands to keep their cash neatly bundled together. And the $2.1 billion, roughly 10%, lost to hungry rats nibbling the bills. He didn't care if he lost $2 billion in cash. There will be losses in every business, even in the cocaine trade of billions of dollars. However, Escobar's had its own way around the money, and his losses were on a different level, as was described by his brother and accountant Roberto in Pablo's biography. He wrote, "Pablo was earning so much that each year we would write off 10% of the money because the rats would eat it in storage, or it would be damaged by water or lost. That's roughly $2 billion cash being yummy dinner for those rodents." Can you imagine the absurd amount of $2 billion in banknotes becoming the favorite breakfast and dinner of the rodents? It must have tasted well. Escobar trusted his fortune to his older brother, but he understood that trust was misplaced, as 5 different entities brought the cocaine kingpin down: the Cali cartel, people persecuted by Roberto Escobar, both the Colombian and U.S. governments, and his own brother, Roberto. Escobar's son, Sebastian Marroquin, wrote in his book, Pablo Escobar, My Father, "My uncle Roberto Escobar, the official informant of the DEA, actively contributed to delivering him to his enemies. He paid his pilots $500,000 for one trip." Escobar's cartel was based on a separate island, and when you have 15 tons of cocaine to smuggle per day, roughly around the same weight as 2 African elephants, it can be a big nightmare. While he was responsible for 80% of the world's cocaine supply, he must be using new means to transport it. The first of the shipments were flown between Colombia and Panama by Escobar himself. Afterward, with the help of a fleet of planes, including a Learjet, he was able to fly his cocaine straight into the U.S. The jet wouldn't return home empty. Oh yes, it would be stuffed with more millions for the cartel. Working for Escobar would ensure an impressive payday. Pilots flying to the U.S. would have their plane tires loaded with cocaine. One trip could earn them up to $500,000. He was also soaking jeans in liquid cocaine, exporting them legally, and then extracting the drug on the other side. Officials were bribed, and those who could not be bribed were murdered. Although he was a hero to many, he is believed to be responsible for an estimated 4,000 deaths. He once set fire to $2 million to keep his daughter warm. One of the absurdest stories about Pablo Escobar's wealth is that he set fire to $2 million because his daughter was cold. His son, Sebastian Marroquin, told Don Juan magazine that when his family was on the run from federal agents, Escobar would regularly blindfold them, put them in a car, and drive them to the new hideout location. That way, if any of his family members were captured, they could not reveal where his location was. Escobar's paranoia was fueled by his greatest fear, to spend the rest of his days locked inside an American jail cell. According to Sebastian, when they lived in a hideout in the Medellin mountainside, his younger sister Manuela developed hypothermia. One morning, when she was really sick, Escobar took 2 stacks containing $2 million and made a bonfire with it to keep her warm and well. He served time in his own luxury prison with a spa. In 1991, with the constant fear of being arrested and hunted, Pablo Escobar worked out an agreement for 6 months with the Colombian authorities. His terms were that he would go to prison for 5 years. However, this prison would be built to his own specification and close to his family home. The terms were agreed to as the Colombian government was already facing a political headache thanks to Escobar's actions. The prison Escobar built was dubbed Club Medellin, among other things, as it included a jacuzzi spa, soccer field, discotheque, and a private bar. There was even phone and fax machines fitted to continue his business and manage what was left of his crumbling empire. The prison was perfect for Escobar, who feared both assassins and extradition to the U.S. His motto was, "Better a grave in Colombia than a cell in the U.S." In 1992, the Colombian government decided to move Escobar to a military installation. During the transfer, a shootout between Colombian soldiers and Escobar's associates ended with the kingpin and his gang escaping through the mountainside. Once again, he had evaded the law. In addition to the small write-off for losses, Escobar also readily spread his wealth around to the people of Colombia. He was considered a hero in the town of Medellin after using his considerable wealth to build soccer fields, community centers, and homeless shelters. Despite these losses, he made Forbes' list of international billionaires for 7 years straight, and in 1989, Escobar was listed as the 7th richest man in the world. The bulk of the cash flow came from the exorbitant upcharge that Escobar placed on his product. Though it only cost him between $1,000 and $4,000 to refine and transport a single kilo of his cocaine to the States, his operatives in America would charge consumers between $50,000 and $70,000 for the same amount. However, Escobar also profited from the sales of his competitors. Drug traffickers from other cartels were handing over anywhere from 20 to 35% of their profits to him, as he was the one who could ship it successfully to the United States. Though the numbers aren't nearly as exact as they could be, most accountants have put Escobar's total wealth in the mid-billions, usually around 30 to 60 billion by 1980 standards. Today, it would be more than double that, making him the richest person in the world, surpassing Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, the actual richest people in the world, by almost $20 billion. Escobar met his own violent demise in 1993 when he was fatally shot amid a failed attempt to escape his hideaway, taken out in dramatic fashion while scurrying across a rooftop. His multiple properties were scattered throughout Central America. Escobar had his own zoo, complete with elephants and hippopotamuses, as well as a fleet of boats and cars, and even a submarine. And he was known for buying lavish gifts, literally burning money to keep his daughter warm, and bragging about his deep pockets to everyone he knew. This was the life and worth of Pablo Escobar. With all the adventures, risks, and money involved, he is still known widely across the world. While many cherish him as the greatest and still call him Robin Hood of Colombia, being the most loved antagonist, others find him as a drug lord who paved the way for this business. But what's your view? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you hit the thumbs up as well. Also, don't forget to watch our other videos and subscribe to our channel. Until the next video, goodbye.